Hello and welcome to episode number 9 of the Cheesesteaks and Controllers podcast, presented by Fox PHL The Gambler for iHeartRadio. My name is Jason Fanelli, and I am the Esports and Gaming Insider for Fox PHL The Gambler. Looking forward very much to tonight's episode. We got a couple of good things going on here. First, I'm going to walk you through the Call of Duty League playoff bracket. Call of Duty League starts next Wednesday, August the 19th, and we'll go through each individual matchup and where I think the chips will fall until we get a winner. Then segment number 2, we have a great interview lined up. Admittedly, it is not the one that I hyped at the end of the last week's episode. At that point, this interview was not scheduled at all. And ironically, the day that I found out that the one that I was hyping would have to be postponed, not 45 minutes later, this one swooped in and is just as good and just as exciting. And I am very happy that it was able to take place. You will love it coming up later on. There are some technical weird things. My interviewee sounds like he's talking to me from inside a stadium, but I will take the blame there. I think that is my fault. The little technical issues on my side before we started, I thought I addressed them all, but I missed one. And now he is broadcasting to me from Lincoln Financial Field. That's what we'll go with. So I hope you all enjoy. Let's not waste any more time and get right to the 6 in 60 seconds. The San Francisco Shock and Shanghai Dragons won the North American and Asian Countdown Cups in the Overwatch League. The Philadelphia Fusion placed second and will play the San Francisco Shock in the final game of the regular season for them this weekend. Meanwhile, the Call of Duty League announced their roster rules for the 2021 season, including the beginning of the 2021 season in late September. And esports team Rogue in Europe became the first team to clinch a spot in the League of Legends World Championships, defeating Vitality on Sunday. Elsewhere, Halo Infinite was delayed to 2021, while the Xbox Series X is still on track for November. Also, a leaked new Xbox controller mentions Xbox Series S on the box, with no confirmation from Microsoft as of yet. And finally, the first Doom Eternal expansion was teased, called The Ancient Gods. The full reveal will happen at Gamescom Opening Night Live at the end of August. This was your 6 in 60 seconds. Alright, there they are, the 6 in 60 seconds. That Halo Infinite delay had a lot of people scratching their heads for multiple reasons, but when I sit back and I think about it, it was the right decision. But we'll get into that. I'm going to talk about that later on in the podcast. Right now, I want to talk about something that is starting next Wednesday on August the 19th. And by the time you hear my voice again for episode 10, it will have already kicked off. That is the Call of Duty League playoffs.
Playoffs? Don't talk about it. Playoffs? You kidding me? Playoffs?
It's the first ever playoffs for this format of the Call of Duty League. Starts next week, and I am very excited to see how this season ends up. It was a great first season. I was very entertained by everything that I watched when I watched it. A couple of teams really stuck out, particularly the first and second seeds. We'll get into that, and I think that we are in for a great weekend, or 2 weekends, I should say, of Call of Duty League action. And I'm going to start with the bracket. We're going to go over the bracket. We're going to talk about each match and who I think is going to win based on when they are scheduled. The first games are in the elimination round, which are taking place between the 9th and 12th and the 10th and 11th seeds. If you remember when I talked about the playoff structures a couple weeks ago, you may recall these teams are not even supposed to be in the playoffs. They are there strictly because it was an online tournament this year, and they kind of had to account for that. So keeping 4 teams of the 12 out of the playoffs seemed a little unfair, and they added them, but basically gave them a loss right off the jump. It's a double elimination tournament, gave them a loss right from the beginning, and made them one and done, which is fair. It's a way to get them in without giving them too much. I mean, obviously they were the lowest teams in the league this year. They should be seen that way. They should be penalized a little bit, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And giving them that first loss right off the jump and putting them right into the loser's bracket, or elimination round as it's called, makes sense. That, I think, is the most logical way to do it. So, the first elimination round matches are the two LA teams, LA Optic Gaming versus LA Guerrillas, and the Paris Legion versus the Seattle Surge. And I believe that Optic Gaming, who came on strong at the end of the season, and the Paris Legion will come out of those matches. Seattle Surge, I want to win. I think Octane is a very good player. I have a soft spot for the coach, Nubsy, because he came onto the podcast with me a couple of weeks ago. But I truly do think that the Legion are just better, and that Optic Gaming is just better than the LA Guerrillas, and those two will move on to round 2 of the elimination. Moving on to the first winners side. Now, the first winners matches are between 5 and 8 and 6 and 7. So 5th seed and 8th seed, 6th seed and 7th seed. 3rd and 4th seeds are in round 2. They earned 1 bye, and the first 2 seeds earned 2 byes. They are in winners round 3. Our first match between 5 and 8 is the New York Subliners and the Minnesota Rocker. And I feel like the Subliners are rolling right now. They won their own home series. They kind of were looking ahead in the last home series they played of the year. I think they bounce back here big time, take out the Rocker 3-1. And on the other side, the 6 and 7 matchup with London Royal Ravens and Toronto Ultra. Toronto did finish the season by winning their home series. However, I feel like that could have been their big moment, and that's how they snuck into the winner's side, and I don't think they're going to stay there. I think London's going to take them out and move on to the second round, which makes the second round of the elimination the Minnesota Rocker from above against LA Optic Gaming and Paris Legion versus Toronto Ultra. And here I believe that both teams that dropped into elimination round 2, that started in winner's side, will lose again. And I think that LA Optic Gaming and Paris Legion will move on and continue in the tournament. And all the way from elimination round 1, for some reason, I do not have a lot of faith in either of the purple teams, Minnesota or Toronto. Minnesota has been up and down all year. Just when you think they're really hitting their stride, they fall back a little bit. And Toronto has been just the same, very, very inconsistent until the end of the season. Some may say they might be getting hot at the real time, but I feel like this break between the Toronto home series and the playoffs will mitigate that. And Toronto and Minnesota join LA and Seattle on the outside looking in, I believe. So then with the Optic Gaming and Legion move on to elimination round 3. Quickly moving on to winners round 2, that will see the New York Subliners, who beat Minnesota in round 1, take on the Chicago Huntsmen. And I do believe that the Subliners will win. I think the Subliners are really playing a strong game right now, with Mac and Tatch and the rest of that team doing very, very well. And the Huntsmen are one of those teams that should be, on paper, very good. All but one of their starters has won a World League championship before the format changed. Envoy being the only one. Ironically, Envoy is their MVP candidate. So he's very good too. You have 4 people with playoff experience. You have a 5th one who is in the MVP running. And yet I just don't have all the faith in the world in them. They were the team that I backed at the beginning of the season. I have a soft spot for them, as I do with Seattle. I really want Chicago to do well. I thought they were one of the coolest teams in the first couple weeks of the season. And then they floated around at the top, but they couldn't really finish the job, I feel like. I don't know what it is. I just have this weird, nagging feeling that the Huntsmen are going to let me down. So I think the Subliners squeak out a 3-2 series win and move on to face the number 1 seed. And on the other side of that bracket, I think Florida takes care of London 3-1. Florida is a tough, tough team to take on. They were riding high towards the end of the season there with 2 straight wins in the home series. So I am looking forward to see what they can do against the number 2 seed in winners round 3. So that leaves us with, on the winners side, the first overall seed Atlanta FaZe versus the New York Subliners, and the second overall seed Dallas Empire versus the Florida Mutineers. And on the elimination side, I have London versus LA Optic, and Chicago versus Paris. On the elimination side, I feel that this is the end of the line for both of those teams that started in elimination round 1. London taking care of Optic Gaming 3-2, and the Huntsmen taking care of Paris 3-1. I do not think that both of those teams can continue the Cinderella story anymore. I feel that London and Chicago are too strong. Even though I just said Chicago scares me, they scare me later on. They scare me more later on. They don't scare me against Paris very much. So I think they'll take care of business there and move on to elimination round 4. Winners round 3, Atlanta FaZe, New York Subliners. It's very hard to vote against the Atlanta FaZe, so I'm not going to do it. As much as the Subliners are good, a good scrappy team, I think Atlanta is just too good, and they're going to move on to the championship weekend, as are the second seed Dallas Empire against the Florida Mutineers. I think they take care of Florida 3-1, setting up a 1 versus 2 Atlanta versus Dallas showdown on the winner's side, on the winner's side of the bracket, on weekend number 2, which leaves us for the final 2 games of the first weekend. Final 3 games of the first weekend to decide who are going to the final 2 games of the first weekend to decide who will be the final 2 in the elimination side. Based on where I've set up, I have the New York Subliners playing the London Royal Ravens and the Florida Mutineers playing the Chicago Huntsmen. Here, I think the Subliners defeat London and cash their and punch their ticket to weekend number 2, and I think the Chicago Huntsmen will take care of the Florida Mutineers 3-2 and move on to the weekend number 2. That is defying my intuition, but a lot of these times I think something so strongly and it comes back and bites me. And that right there, picking Florida over Chicago, is one of those things that would bite me. So, I am going Huntsman in the second round, 3-2, setting up your final 4 on championship weekend. The Atlanta FaZe versus the Dallas Empire on the winner's side. The New York Subliners versus the Chicago Huntsmen on the loser's side. Of those 2 matches, I say Atlanta beats Dallas to get into the championship. Chicago takes care of New York. Finally, someone takes care of New York 3-2, setting up Dallas versus Chicago, which should be an excellent matchup. But I do believe Dallas will come out of that, setting up a 1 versus 2 championship match, Atlanta versus Dallas, which is a best of 9. As opposed to the rest of these being best of 5. So almost double the length in the championship. And I am playing the favorite and going with the Atlanta FaZe 5-2 over the Dallas Empire. I believe that they will take care of business without going to a round 9. I think that they are just too strong in multiple game modes to the point where they could drop 1 game or 2, but not really have a lot of trouble otherwise, no matter who they're playing. If another team besides Dallas makes it in, I don't think it'll be any different. And if somebody were to upset the FaZe have the ability to recover in the elimination round and still get to that championship. I think they're just too good. I think they have too many great players, Simp at the front, and I think they are going to take care of this tournament, win it 5-2, and be the first ever Call of Duty League champions. And then, from there on, we talk about the new 2021 season. I'm hoping that we can talk about a couple of additions to the league. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Philadelphia needs a team. I'm hoping we can talk about a little bit of moving around. Maybe some players will move around. Maybe some I don't know if they do trades in the Call of Duty League per se. I think they do. I can get a couple of trades. We can shake things up and go into the 2021 season with a brand new look, a brand new set of teams, and some more great Call of Duty League action. So there you have it. Atlanta FaZe is my pick for the Call of Duty League Championship. The playoffs start August the 19th at youtube.com/official COD League. Just search for that. Search for Call of Duty League on YouTube, and it'll be the first channel that pops up. Each of these games are played sequentially. You'll be able, if you start watching right when it begins, you'll see every single match of the day. No matches are played concurrently because they don't have to be. They stream all these matches one at a time, so you can be in the action for the entire tournament or for just one match. It's completely up to you. But it'll be, I'm hoping for a hell of a tournament. These teams have been kicking butt all year long, and it's time to put the cap on what was a very strange year for everyone, but esports in general, but also the Call of Duty League. And I hope that they can finish strong and go into 2021 playing the way they had planned, that being live in front of people on that magnificent stage and just having a good time. So, Call of Duty League playoffs, watch them, good time. Now it's time to see what you will be playing when you're not watching the Call of Duty League, because it's time to take out your glasses, fill them up with what's on tap. 3 big returns this week on tap, starting with EA Sports UFC 4, EA's return to the Octagon and their take on mixed martial arts. Meanwhile, Microsoft Flight Simulator, which has been around forever, gets a brand new entry on the PC. And finally, Battletoads are being revived by Rare and Dlala Studios, coming straight to Xbox Game Pass and Xbox One exclusively on the 20th. That's UFC 4 on the 14th, Flight Simulator on PC on the 18th, and Battletoads on the 20th. You got 3 games on 3 different days to choose from. What's on tap for you? Yes, moving right along here on the Cheesesteaks and Controllers podcast, we have a very exciting interview for you. One of my favorite times of the year kicks off this Sunday. One of 2 of my favorite times of the year kicks off this Sunday, and that is Summer Games Done Quick, a week-long speedrunning marathon raising money for a terrific charity in Doctors Without Borders, if I remember correctly, is the summer one. And I have here the Director of Operations for all of Games Done Quick. His name is Matt Merkle. Matt, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me on.
Well, as the Director of Operations for an event like this, what does your day-to-day look like? What are you doing both when there's not an event happening during an off time or in the thick of it?
Well, I guess I'd say that there's always an event happening is the first answer. Normally there would be hotel planning and all that going on months and even years out. But, of course, that's kind of been thrown into a strange mix at this point.
Yeah.
Otherwise, more day-to-day stuff is just, of course, managing all the staff. We got almost up to 50 people who kind of come in and out throughout the year at this point, so making sure they're all on track. Making sure our tech's good, especially with the the virus situation going on. We've had to adapt rapidly to doing this online instead of doing it in person. So there's been a lot of tech changes and figuring that out, and we're trying some new things even for this event over our past one. So it's been interesting to say the least.
Sure. So just for comparison's sake, walk me through when you're setting up in a normal year, like when you get down to Orlando for Awesome Games, and then Minnesota for summer usually?
Yeah, that's what it would have been, yeah.
Okay, so walk me through setting that up. When you get to the hotel for the first time, what are the main challenges in getting it together and making it flow throughout the week? Because it's pretty seamless, all things considered, in a normal year. So how does that work? How do you make that work?
Yeah, I mean, of course, like I said, it starts with a great team. The whole team's done this for years now, and we've really refined the process. But you start with the committee, you get the submissions in. That's quite a long process to get all the games selected, and then from then on, we start working on the schedule, get the schedule out, get the volunteers selected and picked. We have upwards of 100 volunteers usually at the main events.
Wow.
And then we start working on getting everything on site. So we work with partners that have hundreds of consoles for the runners to practice on while they're at the event. We have side rooms to keep people entertained while they're attending as well. So we have to make sure those are stocked and everything like that. And then working with all those vendors and working with the charity, of course, and making sure that we also represent them well. If there's any kind of new things that have happened that year, we try to cover those things as well. So Doctors Without Borders, you might expect some things about the virus situation going on as well this year. but we work with them, and and just managing all those things, and then of course the hotel itself and all that. So,
did you have any reservations from the charity, from Doctors Without Borders, once this COVID thing started happening, that you might not go? Like, when did you know that the SGDQ, this one starting on Sunday, was going online, and how many discussions had to take place before you could make that final decision?
The discussions were happening pretty much continuously since basically when the lockdowns were starting to happen. That was, okay, we need to start looking at this. And that was over 3 months before we were going to have the event originally in June. And so we immediately talked to Doctors Without Borders. They were very, very welcoming on any of the ideas we wanted to go with, and they trusted us to do whatever we wanted to do. And of course, they understood that we were ultimately going to do what is the safest for everybody. So we weren't going to have an event where everybody's going to be at risk of getting sick or something. So, but we tried to give it as much time and as much as opportunity as we could to see if things would improve. But in the end, of course, it didn't. So
sure. Now, in a normal year, you're running online events. Granted, they're smaller, but you're running online events throughout the year. And it's not just your two big bookend plus hotfix, if you want to add for a third one, that people might watch more often. So what did you glean from those online experiences that you plan on implementing this upcoming week, and what extra challenges did you face in doing so?
Yeah, so we've only had 2, or actually I guess technically 3, one way a long time ago, real online events in the past, but they were very successful even on their own. So we've kind of learned some lessons there and how to manage things. So a lot of it is just about preparation. We've done so much preparation for this event.
That's good.
So, for example, literally getting all of the runners and all of the commentators that we can into a Discord channel, talking over the tech, making sure everyone's mics work, make sure everyone's internet works as much as we can. Making sure everything works as smoothly as possible, making sure they understand the process before the day comes, so they have to stream and get it online. So we've done an enormous amount of legwork before the event, and I think that is the number one thing any event can do to really improve how things go, is to test and prepare beforehand. And of course, at the end of the day, there will be issues anyway. People's internets will have hiccups, or their computers may crash or whatever. And we have backups and solutions to work around that. We have backup runs even. So if we need to swap something out, we can do that. But it's all in the practice and the legwork beforehand.
That's good. Now, what I was referring to was the hotfix that you started recently. Did that kind of iron out the process for you, so that way you'd be ready when August showed up?
Yeah, it's certainly helped. And even when we're trying out this new hardware for this event, we've been testing some of those things with the hotfix shows in the past couple weeks. So, it's been a really good testing ground to make sure all that works out. And although the scale is just massively different, when you only have like 4 runners on a hotfix show, it's a lot easier to make sure they're all prepared and on schedule and working. And of course, they also have the ability to, delay the show for a half hour if they really need to, or something to fix everything. Whereas we're on the clock, we gotta get the next thing going.
Sure.
So it's a little different, but we've definitely been able to try things out, and we understand that the preparation that hotfix does has been huge. And of course, we're like, well, we got to do the same thing. And a lot of the runners were on hotfixes in the previous, so they kind of have a familiarity as well with the whole process and how this works. Otherwise, there's still things that change quite a bit anyway, because we use different layouts for the hotfix as we do instead of what we do for the main events, which are actually much more complex systems that take in like the charity side of things. So that adds a whole new aspect and everything. But luckily, we've got like a studio location where we can test these things out and kind of build everything up before the event.
So yeah, that's cool, and I feel like having that hotfix to really iron the stuff out, and like you said, some people that were on the hotfix will be coming up this week. Really is giving me even more faith that this will be a great event, despite being online. Because there's always a little bit of worry. Like if someone were to say to you, "I'm a big fan, but going online this year has given me a little bit of pause," what would your response to them be?
I think this is going to be the best online event we've ever had.
Cool. That's what I like
really,
to hear.
Yeah, I really do think it's going to be the best one we've ever had. We've done so much, and prize man's going to show up again. Nobody has to worry about that sort of thing. We've planned around the virus situation to make sure everyone's safe, but we're still going to have as much of the great content everyone wants to see. So yeah, I think it's going to be really exciting regardless.
That's cool. Now, so you mentioned how you have alternate runs or things in the background in case things change. I did happen to see earlier this week, sometimes your speedrunners do things they're not supposed to do, and then you have to act in a disciplinary fashion. There was a Hollow Knight speedrunner, I believe, who received a ban for things that he may have said before. What goes into those banning decisions? How tough is it to have to do that, and how tough is it to gauge what is a bannable offense versus what isn't?
Well, I think it's difficult for any company to have to make this kind of decisions for
Sure.
anybody that they're working with, and it's definitely always going to be difficult. Like no matter what, it's always a difficult decision. But the ultimate is, of course, to make a very safe event and a very welcoming event for everybody. So those are always the key priorities when we're having to make those kind of decisions.
Have you ever had to make those decisions based on advice from other affiliates with your, like, has a charity ever stepped in and said, yo, get this guy out of here?
No, they never had to do that.
That's good. That's what I like to hear. Okay, so two more fun questions for you. These are light. Not gonna grill you anymore. If I'm grilling you now, I'm sorry. So first, I've broken down GDQ into like three types of runs. So there's any percent, which sometimes breaks the game and shows people all kinds of crazy glitches. The glitchless runs that play the games as intended as fast as possible. Or like goofy runs. Like this year you have Breath of the Wild dog percent, which I find hysterical. What is your favorite type of run? Do you like the ones that break the game, or do you like the ones that are a little more pure?
I go back and forth, actually. It really depends on the type of game, but I tend to lean towards the more broken side, especially if it's the more amusingly broken side, where you can really tell that this is not how the game is supposed to be functioning at this point. And then I also like just the silly block games in general. I feel like those are really exciting, regardless of what category they use. It's almost always amazing to watch those games. And it's like seeing something new that you've never heard of being played.
Yeah, silly block or awful games done quick. Those, I agree with those. Those are great. And then finally, this year's schedule, jam-packed, full of awesome runs. Are there one or two that maybe stick out to you as you look at it? Like, yep, I'm going to make sure that everybody I know watches that one.
Well, I'm always partial to the Star Wars Jedi Knight series, so I'll be watching Dark Forces 2. But again, I really want to see the silly block, which is Thursday morning, I believe. Early morning, by the way.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
No sleep for me.
Yeah. But yeah, I'll be watching those two things for sure.
Does that say Ribbit King? Oh, boy.
Oh, yeah,
no. Okay, so I do have one final question. Sorry. How important is it for you to get newer games into your runs? Like this year, you have Streets of Rage 4, Ori Will of the Wisp, Doom Eternal is going to feature. These are all 2020 releases. Is it important to you, or is it fascinating to you that these games can be sped run? Is that the past tense, I guess? So quickly? Speed ran. There you go. Speed ran so quickly that they're already in a games done quick months after they've released?
Yeah, we've even tried to adapt to the situation. This particular event notwithstanding, because of the days being moved around. But
sure.
Normally we've started taking on more runs in a second phase period where it's much closer to the event. So stuff that's come out really close to a deadline, we can say, okay, we might actually look at this again, just to try and capture some of those new runs, because they are very popular with not only the viewers but also the runners as well. They want to see their favorite new games and the new hot stuff that's come out. So it's definitely something we tried to address and take on. But also we just try to mix it up in general. So we've done a lot to make sure we pick new games quite often. There's always some repeats every year, but I think, looking back on stats, it's like roughly between 40 to 50% are new runs almost every event, which is not necessarily something we track religiously, but we actually are really happy that is the case, because I think that's a good, healthy amount.
Sure, yeah. Awesome. So I am very, very much looking forward to this. This starts Sunday, August 16th, 11:30 a.m. Eastern Time is the pre-show, and we're kicking off at noon with Demon Souls. So we're going to watch somebody be tortured live on Twitch to get this thing kicked off. Matt, thank you so much for your time. I'm very much looking forward to it. I hope you have a wonderful event. Thanks.
All right, thank you.
Yes, there he is, Matt Merkle, Director of Operations for Games Done Quick. Summer Games Done Quick kicks off this Sunday at noon and goes until next Saturday night, whenever it ends. It's a great cause. It's a great event for a great cause. Doctors Without Borders this year. You can donate at gamesdonequick.com as the week goes on, and I recommend you do that. If you want to wait until there's a certain run that you want to donate towards, and you can get your message in there, then do that. If there's a game on the schedule, the entire schedule can be found gamesdonequick.com/schedule. The entire run of the week is on here. Tons of great games to check out, both new and old. The Silly Block, as he was mentioning, is always a highlight, but that is a little early, so you may have to catch that on the YouTube replays afterward. But really some heavy hitters here. Super Mario Odyssey on the first day, and Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2 right before that. You have games like, what else do we have here? With Kirby and the Amazing Mirror, a great Game Boy version, Portal and Portal 2 right next to each other. Hollow Knight Race, Hollow Knight's a great game. Ori, that we mentioned on as I was speaking to him. Those are on Monday. Silent Hill on Tuesday. Donkey Kong Country 2 also on Tuesday. And the list just goes on and on and on. BioShock Infinite is part of it this year. Doom 64 and Doom Eternal. Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, which is playing in a randomizer where all of the items that they collect are randomized, completely changed from how the game is played normally, and that is super interesting to watch. Randomizers are really, really cool for a classic like Ocarina of Time. Horizon Zero Dawn is part of it. The original Mario Brothers is part of it. Just a ton of great, great games, ending with Pokemon Shield on Saturday night. I really do encourage you to watch on their Twitch channel, twitch.tv/gamesdonequick. Check the replays on their YouTube channel, and donate where you can. It's a fantastic event for a fantastic cause, and you can do a little good for people who need it, particularly in this time of pandemic. So, Games Done Quick, check it out. Highly recommend it. I do want to apologize real quick once again for the audio issues. He did sound like he was broadcasting over a stadium PA. That was something on my end, not his. His audio was clean when I was talking to him. I think it was just a matter of my headphones, the volume being set too loud, and my headphones not being attached firmly enough to my ears. Made it very hard to try and get that echo out of there in post. Every time I tried it, it just warped it even worse. So I had to go with the cleanest version, which is the stadium version. So I hope it wasn't too annoying for you. I will keep that in mind for future interviews. And I hope that you enjoyed that interview. I know I did. Looking forward to the event as well. So let's move on to the home stretch of this week's episode of Cheesesteaks and Controllers. And that, fittingly, is the speed run. First up on the speed run this evening, I want to talk about the delay of Halo Infinite into 2021, which was announced at the same time that Xbox confirmed that the Xbox Series X is coming out in November, seemingly leaving the Xbox Series X launch without a dominant first-party title. I am shocked that this happened. On the one hand, it is really going to hurt the console's launch, and gives PlayStation 5 a distinct advantage in the exclusives department. But at the same time, when I stepped back and thought about it, the fact that Microsoft was allowed this to happen, because they wouldn't have been able to delay it without Microsoft's okay. That's just how these things work. the fact that it was allowed to happen tells me a lot about Microsoft's vision and thought process going into this new console era. Because, to be honest, delaying the cornerstone of a brand new console's lineup into the next year is very anti-business for obvious reasons. Especially when you don't have any other exclusives, at least that we know of, to join Halo Infinite on the launch day lineup. And you give Sony a major advantage for just having one. If Sony has one game that launches with the PlayStation 5 that you can only get on PlayStation, they held an advantage. If Spider-Man Miles Morales is a launch title, then PlayStation has a distinct advantage out of the gate. Now, you're always going to have your people, your Xbox diehards that are going to buy Series X. You're always going to have your PlayStation diehards that are only going to buy PlayStation 5. You're always going to have your dopes like me that try and get everything. However, anyone who had to make a choice now has a really good incentive to look at Sony first. That's going to hurt them. However, it is a bit of a window into the fact that Microsoft is much more focused on getting Game Pass over, to use a wrestling term, with the potential buyers of Series X than they are with traditional thoughts about launching a console. Sure, they would love to have Halo Infinite launch with their console. Of course they would. It'd be silly not to. However, they do not let Halo Infinite delay without something like Game Pass to back it up. Whether they're going to offer free Game Pass in the Series X box for a little while, where existing members can put the code in and add that time, and they don't have to pay for the however long that is, or if there's an exclusive still to be announced between now and November, let's say at Gamescom at the end of the month or something like that, that we just haven't heard of yet, that's fine. If they clearly have a plan, at least to the point where Halo Infinite didn't have to be there. There will be strong third-party support, of course. Assassin's Creed Valhalla will be there. Cyberpunk 2077 will be there. A couple other games will be there right at launch. We don't actually know the specific launch titles yet, but there will be support there. Of course there will. Yakuza Like a Dragon is the other one that I'm thinking of. Will be there on launch day. But Game Pass is going to offer something. Game Pass Ultimate is going to offer something that they haven't talked about yet, that will allow them to make that the anchor of this launch. Get Xbox Series X and Game Pass Ultimate on day one. Get this. Whatever this is, we don't know yet. Whatever this is has to be huge. They have to come out and just knock our socks off. If they don't do that, and they delayed Halo, I will be flabbergasted. I'll have no idea what they were thinking or what the heck they were what their thought process was. I can't even get the words out. That's how inexplicable that would be to me. But I do admire that they did this. I admire that they went through with the delay. They saw there was an issue, and they decided that rushing this game to make the launch and having it be potentially putrid was more damaging than delaying it out of the console release window and making it better. That is smart and savvy thinking that many other game companies would not do. That's very uncharacteristic of any other company I can think of, save for maybe Nintendo. They love to delay stuff until it's good. They haven't, not so much recently, but before they would delay stuff all the time. Ask a Zelda fan, say Twilight Princess to a Zelda fan, and tell me their reaction when it comes to delays. That thing was delayed all the way to the launch of the Wii, and it was very transparent. Anyway, I digress. Am I disappointed that Halo Infinite will not be there day one? Of course I am. I want to play Halo Infinite. I loved that demo. I thought it was very, very good. And I thought the things that were being focused on were a little too insignificant to the entire experience. I've always been of the opinion that graphics do not make the game. That's just me. But I do admire them for taking the initiative. I admire them for going through with it. And I hope that it pays off when we finally can play Halo Infinite, whenever that will be. Not sure when that's going to be. It's the old when it's done, but we'll see. So good luck to 343 Industries. Good luck to them. I hope it works out. And I will be waiting to find out whenever Halo Infinite does launch. Now we go from bad news that ended up being a good thing, hopefully, to good news that suddenly became bad news. And that is the announcement from Remedy Entertainment and 505 Games regarding Control, the excellent 2019 third-person shooter, and a game that everybody should play. So an Ultimate Edition was announced for Control. It's $40 instead of the main $60. It will contain the base game and both of the expansions. And it comes out in different days based on the platform. So Steam gets it first at the end of August. September 10th is Xbox One, PlayStation 4, and Epic Games Store, all digital. Later in 2020 will be the physical versions for Xbox One and PS4. When the consoles launch, it'll be digital for them. And then sometime in 2021, the new consoles will get physical copies. So they have this whole schedule planned out. However, the news came out not long after that Control will be upgraded for free to the new consoles, PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X, only if you purchase this Ultimate Edition. That sucks. And frankly, it was a decision that should have been flagged immediately in whatever boardroom it was pitched in for doing more harm than good. There is no reason why players who adopted early with this game, and when I say early, we're talking about over a year ago, because that's when the game actually came out, and then bought your season pass separate from this Ultimate Edition. There's no reason why those people should not get the free upgrade to Series X and PlayStation 5 when they launch as well. None whatsoever. It reeks of money grab. It reeks of anti-consumer business. And it just boggles my mind that they went through with this. Normally, I tend to see silver lining with controversial decisions. I just talked about that in Halo Infinite. This has no silver lining. It has no good that can be associated with it. It's a dumb decision from the jump. And I don't know if Remedy was strong-armed into it or if they had a hand in it or what. It doesn't sound like something they would do. And I don't know enough about 505 to judge their business practices. I know they've had some rocky things happen, so maybe it's not out of their wheelhouse to consider this sort of thing. However, no matter whose decision it was, and no matter who had to clear it, it's a dumb thing. It's super, super dumb. It's super avoidable bad press that didn't need to happen. I still cannot figure out, even as I talk about it now, what good can possibly come of it. They need to change their direction as soon as possible. There's no getting around it. If somehow someone from Remedy or 505 should listen to this clip, just make the upgrade for every Control player. Damn it. What are you thinking? Why? Why did you think this would fly? So now I have to spend $40 more for content that I already own to get the upgrade when I bought Control a month after it launched. That doesn't fly. It doesn't make sense. It's not consumer friendly. And this was a problem that could have just been avoided by saying everybody gets the upgrade. I don't understand. It makes no sense to me. So, good job, 505. Good job, Remedy. Although I have this sneaking suspicion it's not entirely Remedy's fault. Am I still excited for the Alan Wake expansion coming? Yes, because I already own the game on Xbox One and I'll be able to play it. Am I excited about the fact that if I want to play Control on the new console, if I want to go back and play it again at some point, I have to shell out $40 to do it? No, and I hope that changes soon. If it doesn't, then I guess this will be the end of my Control experience. And I'm sure I'm not alone in that either. It's a shame. It really is. It's a shame. But finally tonight, we're going to talk about some good news that's just good news. No bad, no descending into bad news, no nothing. Just straight up good news. And that was the latest Night City Wire video event for Cyberpunk 2077, due out November 19th of this year. Went over some of the weapons you'll be using in the adventure. Showed some guns, showed some melee, showed some really, really cool things. But the thing that really stuck out to me was the life path system and how you have 3 options on how to start your character. You have the nomad, someone who lives on the outskirts and has to make their way into Night City, and you will do all that. You'll start on the outskirts, you'll meet with those people, you'll do those missions, and then you'll find a way into the city organically. There's the street kid, where you just grow up on the streets of one of the poorer parts of town, and you're already in Night City. And then Corpo, who is someone who went through the corporate ranks and knows all the people at the top of the corporate ladder at the beginning of the game. So it's 3 completely different dynamics. You have the outsider, you have the person who starts from nothing, and you have the person who starts in the corporate arena. And the way your adventure will play out based on those decisions that you make right from the start. So, for example, they showed one of the fixers, or gang leaders for a more general term, in the game, who belongs to a group in that poor city, Haywood. And if you start as a street kid, you already know who he is when those missions come up. If you start as a nomad, you don't, because you're a complete outsider if you've never been to the city before. If you start as a corpo, you may have heard of him, but you've never met him. Street kid, ready to go. Same thing with corpo. There are some missions where there's this really scary-looking executive lady. I don't remember her name off the top of my head. But if you're a corpo, you know who she is, you know why she's doing the things she's doing, and that can tweak your answers and maybe give you some extra dialogue when you address her, when you talk to her. It's a fascinating idea, and one really ripped from the Cyberpunk 2020 pen and paper RPG that Cyberpunk 2077 is coming from, giving these backgrounds to these characters, giving this foundational start like this. Really, really shows me just how deep this game is going to be when it comes out. It's been delayed 3 times now. Technically, we should be playing it already. And the more I learn about it, the more November 19th can't come soon enough. I haven't even decided which way I want to go. There are advantages to everything. I think Corpo might hit a little too close to home. Just, being a regular grunt in the corporate machine. I don't know if I want to do that. And Nomad, I feel like, is too detached. I imagine there's going to be some perks that happen later on with a Nomad. But I feel like I think I'm leaning Street Kid, just so I have some knowledge of the city and how it works, even if it's in the poorer parts of the city. I'd love to know your choices. If you could hit me up on Big Man Fanelli, at Big Man Fanelli on Twitter, and let me know what you think about Cyberpunk's life path system, or anything that I spoke about tonight. If there's a GDQ run that you're interested in, if you have different opinion on Halo Infinite, if you just want to call me a dum-dum, at Big Man Fanelli on Twitter, there it is. I'm also on Instagram there, but I don't take a whole lot of pictures, so not a whole lot of activity going on there. Twitter is my jam. Let me know what you think. I'm looking forward to hearing your responses. You got a lot of things to look forward to this week with Battletoads and UFC 4. UFC 4 will already be out when this episode goes live on Friday, so let me know on Twitter how you feel about that game out of the jump. And that's it. We are at the end of episode 9 of the Cheesesteaks and Controllers podcast, presented by Fox PHL the Gambler for iHeartRadio. As always, if you are listening to these words at the end of the episode, I am so grateful that you did take this journey with me this week. Thank you again for your time, for your listening. I hope you learned something today. If you didn't, then I hope you were entertained. And until next week, episode number 10, I can't believe it. Episode 10 next week. This is the Cheesesteaks and Controllers podcast. I am Esports and Gaming Insider Jason Fanelli for Fox PHL The Gambler. Thank you. See you next week.